All right, we want to continue to talk about the topic of manipulation. And I gave you uh, kind of a question to think about last time that we were together uh, along the lines of, does God manipulate? And so we want to spend a few minutes talking about the difference between manipulation and motivation. Um, so let's see if we can pull this up. Now, how can you tell the difference between manipulation and rules and regulations? And I think the key for us to understand is motivation. Everything in life has a motivation. That includes rules and regulations and manipulation. People in authority have rules and regulations. Uh, It depends on what their motivation is. Is it for the welfare of the person underneath their authority? Is it viewing those people as pawns and tools to accomplish their own purpose? So motivation is essential and key. Now, motivation for rules and regulations are good and beneficial to both sides of the relationship. Both sides of the relationship. It cannot be a one-way street. Cannot be a one-way street. The motivation for manipulation is self. It's a tool to get someone to do what I want them to do, and the benefactor is me, not the person. Now, hopefully that is a simplified approach. Rules and regulations are for the benefit of both parties involved. Manipulation is only beneficial to the manipulator. So that raises a question: does God manipulate? And you can read scriptures, and many times you will read the formula: if you do this, I will do this. That is a common formula that God uses in the scriptures. A verse that probably is only quoted on days of national celebration like Veterans Day and July 4th and Memorial Day, 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, etc., then I will heal their land. That sounds like manipulation, doesn't it? Jesus, in talking to his disciples, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So is God manipulating his creation for his own benefit? Let's see if we can pull this apart. First of all, 307 times you will see the phraseology if then statements. 307 times. Now, persuasion is different than manipulation. The definition for persuasion is this. I got to see if I can read my screen here. Is to move someone to a belief, a course of action, or position through reasoning. Through reasoning. And if you take a look, if you just do a sample random selection of the 307 if-then statements, before or directly afterwards, you will find God's reasoning to these people that he has given the if-then statement. And the benefit is not for God. God has everything. What benefit could he get? The benefit is for the person to observe the commandment, to comply with the commandment, to obey the commandment. That's the benefit to the creation. Now, God will ultimately get glory when we obey him, but God has glory already whether we obey him or not. You need to stop and maybe let that one sink in for a minute. Does not God personify glory himself? And the answer is yes. So, what would happen if I am persuaded by God with the if-then statements, and he explains why this needs to be done, the motivation there, he will get more glory. He doesn't need my obedience to receive glory because he already has it. It's very interesting in John chapter 15. We've looked at this once or twice before. This is the pruning process. This is the chapter on bearing fruit. And in John 15, Jesus is talking to his disciples and says, in order for you to bear fruit, I'm paraphrasing now, you have to be in the vine. All right? Everybody who gets saved, everybody who is a believer, is expected to bear some level of fruit. That is proof that I have this relationship. Jesus goes on to say that if you allow the Spirit of God to prune you, you will bear more fruit. You will bear more fruit. And then, to conclude, Jesus tells his disciples that if you abide in me, you have this intimate relationship with me, you will bear much fruit. And so there we have the process. But wait a minute. Don't stop there. Read the next verse. It says that you will prove that you are my disciples by bearing much fruit. So even in our Christian experience, there are daily challenges of persuasion from God, with the Word of God, through the Spirit of God, for us to bear fruit. Persuasion, convincing somebody, setting a course of action, reasoning with them, not manipulation. It's for the benefit of the person being persuaded. Isn't it Isaiah that says, come, let us reason together? Why does God want to reason with us? Because in his infinite knowledge, he knows our propensity to follow after our own flesh and our own desires. And in his knowledge, he knows the results of that, doesn't he? That we are going to have a whole mess of problems and consequences. Therefore, like a loving father, he seeks to persuade us to do that which is right, because the benefit is to me. He's already perfect. He's already holy. He is complete in every area that he wants us to grow in. That's persuasion. Manipulation now is completely different. Manipulation is to control a person or a situation through unfair means, especially to one's own advantage. So manipulation is, I'm going to say something, I'm going to do something, I'm going to act a certain way, I'm going to have halo data, I'm going to look a certain way because I want you to do something for me. I view you not in a relationship, I view you as a pawn in order to accomplish something for my benefit. not for yours. You will receive nothing from this. You will have no pleasure at the end of doing this. You think you will be pleasing me, but at the end, you're going to feel very terrible. You are going to feel guilty. You're going to ask yourself, why did I do that again? Why did I let that person do that to me? That is a response when manipulation is realized in a person's life. Now I want to pause here for a moment, and if you have any questions, turn your mic on and let me see if I can clear up the confusion if anybody has a question or a comment that you would like to share, because this could be a little bit stretching the gray matter. Clear as mud.
Pastor,
Okay.
Pastor, so
Yeah.
can you, by saying to yourself, I deserve this or I deserve that, can you manipulate yourself?
Yes, you can. Very good, Sue. Yes, you can. Absolutely. And I guess the question would be, and it would have to be individual. For example, let's say you say that, I deserve that. What are you looking for by that statement? What are you looking for someone to do? What are you looking for you to do for yourself? Remember, motivation. Manipulation,
Right.
motivation. So what am I looking for? Am I looking for pity? Am I looking for sympathy? Am I looking to excuse myself for something that I've done? It depends on the person and the situation when they make that statement.
Okay.
That makes sense a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Right. This week, I also asked you to see if you can spot any manipulative statements that you might have heard. Anybody care to share before I give you a list of some things? Okay, let me give you the list then that I have come up with. Manipulative statements. If you don't do such and such, if you don't, have you ever heard somebody say that? Have you ever heard that been said to you? Have you ever said that to someone? If you don't do this, how about this one? If you really love me, if you really care for me, if you really understand me, if you really know how sad I feel, if you really, it sounds like we're in preschool sometimes when we say these things. How about this one? If my husband would only, and I hear this a lot in counseling, maybe Miss Davis, you hear this as well with ladies that you counsel with. If my husband would only be the spiritual leader in the home, I would be spiritually strong. I would be able to do the right thing. And what is the wife doing? She is blaming the husband for her lack of spiritual discipline in her life. And spiritual discipline, beloved, is not, it doesn't hinge on the husband or the wife's actions or behavior. It lies within the person themselves. It lies within the person themselves. And then this one, son, if you try your very best, if you put your nose to the grindstone, if you get those grades up, I'll buy you a car, I'll do whatever. By the way, a lot of manipulative statements within the family structure is nothing but bribery. Nothing but bribery. You're bribing the child to do something you want them to do, because when the son doesn't do this or the daughter doesn't do this, it's unpleasant to the parent. And then the parent has a couple of things that they need to look at. Where am I misleading my child? What kind of example am I showing to my child that he is reproducing? And it can become very introspective for a parent, and sometimes rightfully so. Son, if you try your best. John, if you put your nose to the grindstone. What are we saying? You need to try harder. You're not measuring up to the standard that I think you should be at. And by the way, if you think in biblical examples, and I really encourage you that you do, anybody know where I might go with this one? John, if you put your nose to the grindstone? How about the Apostle Paul with John Mark? Although he didn't tell John Mark, if you put your nose to the grindstone, but John Mark did not live up to Paul's expectation as a missionary apprentice, did he? Because the scripture said what? John Mark deserted us. Remember the big fight between Paul and Barnabas? Barnabas wanted to take him. Paul says no. And notice the reason that Paul gave in the book of Acts. He deserted us in Pamphylia. He didn't measure up. Paul still had a wide berth of legalism in his life when it came down to the first missionary journey and its expectations of John Mark. Now, he mellowed on the second missionary journey and the third missionary journey. He spent more time in prison than he did in the temple preaching. And near the end of his life, he said, what? Bring John Mark to me because he's profitable in the ministry. What all of a sudden made John Mark profitable in the ministry? It was Uncle Barnabas that took him under his wing and discipled him and mentored him. And see, that's a whole different concept to think about. Older men teaching younger men. The Bible commands us to do that. And then what about this one? If you buy this for me, I'll never ask for anything again. Yeah, right. Again, the child or the spouse or somebody is manipulating me to get something either they can't afford or, watch this now, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. And they try to put me on a guilt trip by making a false promise. If you buy this for me, I'll never ask anything of you again. So you go ahead and buy that thing for them, and I'll bet you within 7 days they're going to be asking you for something else. And it's probably going to be bigger and better than what they asked you the first time. How about this one? Just do it for me. Just do it for me. Well, that statement should not be made by any human being to another. Did you get that? This statement, just do it for me, should not be made from any human being to another. Remember, I told you last week what my father-in-law made my sister-in-law promise about losing weight. Just do it for me. If any motivation should be done for change, just do it for the Lord. See the difference? Whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do all for the glory of God. And then, but you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand how difficult it is for me to live with this man. You don't understand the pressure that I'm underneath. You don't understand the difficulties that I have down at work. Now, if you listen to this statement, you don't understand that people tell you, they'll also justify their sinful practice. You don't understand the pressure I'm underneath. Drinking takes the edge off. It helps me calm down before I go home. if you don't understand. And I think Miss Davis as well can testify, and I've heard this many, many times in counseling. The counselee will tell me, you don't understand. You don't understand. I remember having a young man who was marriage counseling, and he sat in the chair with his wife opposite of me, and he was a tall, lanky black man, and he had a drug problem. And he would tell me, you don't understand what it's like. You don't understand what it's like. And I looked at him, and I did something melodramatic to get his attention. I slapped my hand down on my desk, open palm, boom, on my desk, and it made a deafening noise, and he jumped. Now this guy's about 6'6", 6'7". You don't understand. I slapped my hand on the desk and I looked at him. I said, I don't need to understand your particular sin. I understand the monkey of sin in my own life. That's what I understand. You know, and I forgot the name of the type of counseling here, but when I was training people, there was a counseling system out there that advocated that you needed to find a counselor. Let's take, for example, myself. I need to find a counselor who is white. I need to find a counselor who is middle-aged. I need to find a counselor who is a widower because they understand death. I need to find a counselor who has been in ministry because only they will understand. That's hogwash. That's hogwash. I forgot the name of it, but I taught against this. I don't need to understand what my counselee is going through. Understand means to experience it. That's how they use this word, understand. You don't understand. You haven't experienced it. I experience sin. Sin is sin, whether it's a monkey on your back with alcohol or whether it's anger. Sin is sin. I understand how it can put the bit in your mouth and try to control your life. But this is a manipulative statement. Because you don't understand, you can't help me. Because you don't understand, I can justify why I do what I do. And then if you don't get some help, not Kant. I got to talk to my secretary about spell checking this stuff. If you don't get some help, that's a threat. And I have heard wives say this to their husbands. If you don't get some help, I'm leaving you. If you don't get some help, I'm taking the kids. I'm going to go live with mother, blah, 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 blah. If you don't get some help, that is manipulative, but it carries a threat. It carries a threat of significance to the person who might hear this. And many times, the spouse would come in to see me. The wife has left, and the spouse comes in to see me, and they want to get back together with their wife. They admit what they have done. They call it sin. And here's another manipulative statement that's not up there. The husband will tell me, I'll do anything to get my wife back. Boy, that sounds noble, doesn't it? I'll do anything. Boy, that sounds like brokenness and humility, doesn't it? Oh, yes. No. Rick, or are you a hard-nosed counselor? Think it through, guys. I'll do anything to get my wife back. And I would look at this man and I would say, so you'll kill somebody to get her back? Well, no. You'll rob a bank? Oh, no. And so you go down some of the extreme things to help them understand you can't do anything to get your spouse back if it is a sinful action. Many times in marriage counseling, when there's a separation and there's this manipulation taking place, the spouse will be afraid not to comply with the wife's wishes or demands for fear if I don't do what she asks me. She wants me to babysit the kids. It's not my weekend, it's her weekend. And she just wants to go out and party and hook up with John Doe over here and have a great weekend. Well, if I don't do that, she might not let me see the kids again. Boy, that's manipulation, isn't it? And now we have enlisted the kids in the manipulative process. You need to keep your ears open for manipulative statements. We're going through communication on Tuesday. Communication will help you identify your own manipulative statements that you might make. And if you don't make the statement and you're thinking about it, you've already said it in your mind. You've already said it in your mind, and you run the danger of it lodging in your heart. Now, next time that we get together, we're going to talk about recognizing manipulative methods. And there's about 12 of them. And you're going to learn some Latin as we go through some of these, but I'll explain what the term means. And it will bring manipulation more to life and hopefully easier to recognize this very deceitful method of living life. All right, any questions, thoughts from great readers, examples that you want to give? I know it was kind of short.
Yeah. It's all right. I have something, Rick.
Okay, Carl?
And it's the one what you don't understand, where you said you didn't experience the same thing, but you could have, like you said, sin is sinned. And I understand my own sin, and I understand my motivation for it. So is that a way to relate to them that you may not have the same life experiences, but you understand the motivation that's behind their sin?
Yes, no. Let me try to explain that. The drug addict's motivation might not be my motivation to yell at my wife. The motivation is there, but it could be different in the situation. I understand where you're coming from. I would add to that statement, if you were talking with somebody, I don't know exactly what motivates you to do what you do, but I do know that what you're doing is sinful. I've shown you from the scriptures, excuse me, and you have agreed that it's sinful. And though I don't go out and get high on drugs, I understand how sin can dominate your life because I struggle with A, B, and C. So you're putting the two together here, Carl.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Because the motivation for a drug addict might be to escape an unpleasant situation. A motivation for a husband yelling at his wife might be to control her. Okay? But the concept is, as a counselor, I understand sin. I don't have to experience exactly what you're going through, but I understand sin and its consequences in my life. So that's our point of identification. Just because I don't have a needle in my arm doesn't mean that I don't understand the pull of sin in my life.
Right. That's what I was driving at. That's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, good.
No, that's all right. No, that was good.
All right,
No,
good,
that
good
clear.
clarification. Yeah. Anybody else?
Pastor, this is Sue. I just wanted to tell you that the service was good today, and I thank you for the hard work of getting that on YouTube.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much. I listened to it as well. Not again because I'm sick and tired of listening to me, but I skipped through it, and I have to pull the mic, the headset, further away from my mouth because you heard the breathing all the time, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have to pull that mic further away and lower it down, not right up by my mouth, but down closer around my by my chin area. And I've got a different headset coming. I think that might be a better quality. But thank you for.
Well, you've worked hard at getting those on YouTube and stuff, and I just appreciate it, so we don't miss stuff like that, you know.
Well, thank
It's
you.
really, I think that's a good platform it's gonna be for that.
Yeah, thank you for your encouragement. All right, Tuesday is
And
community.
also, could you give me the last J for number J? I somehow missed that.
Last thing for number J. Okay.
Yeah, on our sheet.
Okay, let me call up the.
Or maybe someone else can if they've got it right there.
Hang on here. Okay, what is it? Which was the last one you had, Sue?
If you don't get some help.
There was none after that.
Okay, so that means I just don't know how to do my alphabet. Thank you.
All right, next time that we get together, we'll talk about how to do the alphabet.
Yes, good.
Oh, dear. Okay. Tuesday communication, you'll be getting the handout part 2 of how to communicate better. Thursday, part 2 on 7-day Adventists. Sunday, we'll continue on manipulation. I am doing a new series on, yeah, it's around here somewhere. Oh, I'm sorry, on the book I wrote on masturbation, Shattered Expectations for Sexual Gratification. 2 of them have been posted already. And I will be also adding from a study guide I wrote on counseling the rebel. So keep an eye on that link and you go and check it and see if there's anything in there that might be helpful. Please feel also free to pass that link along. We are not doing this to promote the church or myself, but just to get some good, solid teaching out there, especially in this world that we're living in today.
Amen.
Any other thoughts or comments from anybody?